Laudetur Jesus Christus. Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Friday, December 6th, Pope Francis urges students of theology to be missionaries of hope. Composer Hans Zimmer talks about his contribution to a Christmas charity concert in the Vatican, and Syrian rebels advance toward the city of Homs after making rapid gains against the government. In the Vatican, I'm Devin Watkins. Pope Francis met today with theological students from southern Italy during an audience with the St. Paul Theological Institute of Catania. The Pope urged Sicilian seminarians and religious to be missionaries of hope amid ongoing social challenges in the region. Joseph Tulloch reports.
Sicily's San Paolo Theological Institute was founded in 1969 when, following the Second Vatican Council, the Diocese of Eastern Sicily decided to join forces to establish a centre for the theological formation of Sicilian priests, religious and lay people. In his address, Pope Francis underscored the importance of the Institute's deep connections to Sicily's cultural and spiritual heritage, which includes martyrs such as St. Agatha and St. Lucy, and modern martyrs such as Father Giuseppe Puglisi and Judge Rosario Livatino, who were both killed by the mafia. The Pope also noted that the increased number of female students at the Institute reflects cultural and societal changes taking place in the Church in Sicily, a region where, the Pope said, women have often been undervalued. Referring to the region's ongoing challenges, including widespread corruption and organised crime which hinder the region's development, Pope Francis remarked that, quote, Sicily needs men and women who can look to the future with hope and train new generations to be free and transparent in caring for the common good, to eradicate poverty, both ancient and new. The Pope therefore urged the Institute to engage with social issues by promoting a culture of welcome and fraternity toward the poor and the marginalised, as well as the integration of migrants in Sicilian society. And finally, the Pope commended the Institute's academic collaboration with the University of Catania and encouraged it to dialogue with the broader Sicilian milieu, characterised, he said, by its rich literary heritage, which inspires hope and resilience. Go forward with hope and be missionaries of hope, the Pope urged, and he brought the audience to a conclusion by invoking St. Nicholas, a figure of unity, he said, between East and West, as well as a key player at the Council of Nicaea. Noting that next year will be the 1700th anniversary of that council, Pope Francis, who has expressed his intention to use the anniversary to set a common date for Easter between Catholics and Orthodox, urged the Institute to take the opportunity to advance upon the path toward ever deeper Christian unity. I'm Joseph Tulloch.
The Vatican is set to host the 5th edition of its annual Concert with the Poor, which blends artistic beauty and social solidarity. Saturday evening's concert will feature renowned Oscar-winning composer Hans Zimmer alongside composers Monsignor Marco Frisina and Dario Vero. It also boasts the solo participation of Grammy-nominated cellist Tina Guo. Ahead of the concert, Hans Zimmer spoke to Francesca Merlo about the importance of the concert and about how music can help in the quest for world peace and solidarity.
The importance for this is just to show a light onto something which is sort of somehow buried in darkness, buried in running around and doing fun things while people suffer. It's important that we look the poor in the eye and treat them as human beings. You know, there was a time not too long ago where musicians weren't really human beings and were not looked in the eye, and we were sort of the bottom of the gene pool. So it's quite nice to rise up and give back.
And what role do you think artists and musicians can play in fighting for social causes? My main example, of course, I can't help but think of Live Aid.
Absolutely. It proved that in the short term something could happen. But that you mention it means that there is a residue of memory left, you know. And I think if any of us look at that film again that came out on, you know, it was BBC News, wasn't it? We should be more shocked than we were then, because the film is still current, the film is timeless, unfortunately. And we have a duty to use our power of imagination, because that's what we're good at. You know, write a song, you know, make a movie, you know, write a book, you know, do something that shakes people a little awake and lets people participate as well, you know.
And how do you think that music can help in healing trauma? I'm thinking of its therapeutic nature, music therapy and helping children victims of conflict.
Let me say it like this. When I sit down at the piano and I start playing and, I have a conversation with somebody, there comes a point where I'm just like, there's nobody else in the room. It's just me and the piano, and I'm just playing. And all pain, all everything just goes away. It's a refuge. It's an amazing refuge. Maybe it's a little unrealistic, but it gives you a break from the forces of darkness.
That was composer Hans Zimmer speaking to Francesca Merlo ahead of the Vatican concert with the poor. In Syria, thousands of people have fled the central city of Homs as rebel forces advance on the country's third-largest city. As Nathan Morley reports, the insurgents have made rapid gains against President Bashar al-Assad.
According to reports, tens of thousands of people have been fleeing as the anti-government forces advance on the city. The rebels seized Hama to the north on Thursday, a second major blow to President Bashar al-Assad, who lost control of Aleppo last week. Following the seizure of Hama, footage emerged of a statue of the former president Hafez al-Assad being pulled down in the south of the city. The rebels' goal is to overthrow President Assad's regime, according to the leader of the militant group HTS. Late on Friday afternoon, Reuters news agency reported that Kurdish-led forces had seized control of Deir al-Zur. Russia, a key ally of the Syrian government, is now urging its citizens to leave the country. In a brief statement on Telegram, the embassy cites the difficult military and political situation as it advised Russian citizens to leave the country on commercial flights through existing airports. Earlier, Jordan's Interior Ministry confirmed that it had ordered the closure of the country's border with Syria. The Nasib crossing is the main passenger and commercial border crossing between the two countries. The United States was caught unaware by the rapid advance of the Syrian rebel forces, according to the former ambassador James Jeffries. Syria's civil war began back in 2011 after President Assad's crackdown on democracy protests. For Vatican Radio, this is Nathan Morley reporting.
Romania's top court has annulled the results of the first round of the country's presidential election after accusations of Russian meddling. The second round had been scheduled for Sunday. Cygnus, the World Catholic Association for Communication, has expressed grave concern over the political developments in Romania. The country's Supreme Council of National Defense had reported cyber attacks targeting the integrity of the electoral process. Helen Osman, president of Cygnus, emphasized the seriousness of the situation, saying the actions erode the integrity of democratic values as well as fundamental rights, including freedom of expression and the independence of the press. Ms. Osman reaffirmed the Catholic Church's position on ethical communication, quoting Pope Francis's teaching on the importance of political engagement. She said politics remains a lofty vocation and one of the highest forms of charity, while urging the Romanian people to seek to protect their EU democracy. Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher has expressed the Holy See's deep concern over growing divisions among members of the OSCE, or the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. The Vatican Secretary for Relations with States spoke at the OSCE Ministerial Council meeting held in Malta. Lisa Zingarini has the story.
Addressing the OSCE ministers in Valletta, Archbishop Gallagher called for renewed commitment from the organisation's 57 members to work for world peace, security and justice through dialogue in the spirit of the Helsinki Accords, emphasising the crucial importance of upholding the OSCE's founding principles, particularly in light of current global tensions. He noted that the vision underpinning that landmark agreement signed nearly 50 years ago to reduce Cold War tensions is compromised today above all by a growing breakdown of mutual trust, an increase in ideological aggression and a flagrant disregard of those principles. Archbishop Gallagher mentioned in particular the ongoing war in Ukraine, alongside broader geopolitical tensions causing fragmentation within the organisation, and also the prolonged delay in filling the OSCE's leadership positions. Tensions emerged clearly on the first day of the summit on Thursday, when Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov clashed indirectly with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken over Ukraine, recalling that the organization's strength and uniqueness lie in its diversity of perspectives that enrich its dialogue and decision-making processes. Archbishop Gallagher cautioned against transforming it into a forum of only like-minded states and warned that abandoning the pursuit of consensus could lead to its self-annihilation or distortion of the Helsinki spirit. Concluding, the Vatican diplomat reaffirmed the OSCE's indispensable role as a forum for dialogue and negotiation, urging participating members to preserve its unique mission and calling for renewed efforts to foster dialogue, de-escalation and consensus building. I am Lisa Zengarini.
Communications professionals from across Asia met in Indonesia this week as part of the Federation of Asian Bishops' Conferences, or FABC, Bishops' Meet. Held in Jakarta, the event concluded with a call for the Church in Asia to prioritize listening and embrace modern technology to advance the mission of synodality. The event brought together representatives from 14 countries, including the Philippines, India, Indonesia, and Vietnam. The bishops stressed the urgency of adapting to the rapidly evolving digital landscape. And finally, the Papal Foundation has celebrated 25 years of providing scholarships to students studying theology in Rome. The John Paul II Scholarship Fund has helped over 2,000 seminarians, religious, and laypeople study in the Eternal City. Francesca Merlo has more.
The Papal Foundation, established in the United States in 1988, has helped over 2,000 theological students study in Rome near the tombs of the Apostles. The foundation has marked the 25th anniversary of the John Paul II Scholarship Fund, which aids religious men and women in developing countries. Since its inception, the foundation has dedicated over $225 million to various causes as part of its mission to support the popes in their pastoral and charitable endeavours worldwide. The John Paul II Scholarship Programme emerged from a conversation between Pope St. John Paul II and then Chairman Cardinal Francis O'Connor. John and Carol Seaman provided the initial funding to establish the programme. John Seaman said Pope John Paul II's request for a scholarship programme was deeply personal. He said JP2 had been a scholarship recipient during his studies at the Angelicum in Rome, and he wanted the same opportunity to be made available to other men and women religious and lay leaders. Sister Anna Kapunamai of India, a scholarship recipient, said her studies in Rome will help her better train young people in the proper use of social media. She said today the influence of social media is growing among young people and children. My vision is to help young people become literate and responsible social media users while preserving their personal and social values. Cardinal Sean O'Malley, chairman of the Papal Foundation's Board of Trustees, emphasized the organization's role in addressing global inequality. He said, in a society where the gap between rich and poor continues to grow, the Papal Foundation recognizes its responsibility to prioritize the needs of the poor and vulnerable. In April, members of the Papal Foundation met with Pope Francis in Rome. The Holy Father expressed gratitude for the aid provided to the Church and those on the spiritual and social margins, urging continued efforts to foster solidarity and peace. I'm Francesca Merlo.
That brings us to the end of this edition of Vatican and World News. For more on these and other stories, please visit vaticannews.va. And don't forget to catch our latest updates on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Many thanks go to Daniele Giorgi in studio. In the Vatican, I'm Devin Watkins.